and I did my undergraduate education in Colorado. And it was a completely different world for me in terms, not just of geography, but I got there and my roommates were just flabbergasted. They're like, what do you mean you don't have recycling at your house? So we didn't have a recycling program. We didn't talk about climate change. We didn't talk about like our own independent actions and how it affects the environment and the ownership that each of us has as just global citizens to do better. So my entire perspective was changed culturally when I got to Colorado. And then just as an interest or an exploration of taking electives, I took an intro to environmental studies and entirely loved the curriculum and the courses. They didn't offer an opportunity for a minor, so I just decided to do a double major. Then I just kept adding more stuff in my education. So my kind of transition into a reflection of my own independent actions and expectations for myself really happened in the collegiate environment. I found myself back in Oklahoma to do an MBA with the business school. And when I was finishing up that program, they created this position within facilities kind of around the same time period. So I was really excited to have an opportunity from my perspective to create change or create awareness of university operations that aligned with what I experienced in my own college experience and try and help young people in Oklahoma just see maybe what they hadn't had a perspective of as younger people.
That's really cool. How do you see Oklahoma falling like on a sustainability level? Where does our campus rank in that? And then where does the state of Oklahoma rank in that?
Gotcha. When we look at reporting, the one report that I have that kind of looks at a national scale is the Princeton Review Report. And this last year we scored a 95. This Princeton Review Report is looking at, okay, it's almost time for me to redo it. So it's been like 9 months since I started doing it, but I've done it for like 8 years. It looks at our academic offerings. It looks at our emissions, whether we're doing emissions reporting. It looks at our sources of energy. It looks at our efficiency of how we're generating utilities. It looks at programs on campus for food options, for what we call like micromobility, whether it's bikes and scooters or ride shares or idling processes. Um, so it's meant to be this broad questionnaire that is looking at academics, research, and operations. We scored a 95, which is a great score. Unfortunately, the kind of it's unfortunately, this report has grown so much since we've done it over this time period that they'll rank the top schools 1 through 50. And those schools, I think, had like a 96. So like we're 1 point below what were the top 50 schools. But then if you're below the top 50, it says you're one of 500 schools. So it's kind of like, those are very different things to be able to say. So yes, like in the press release, we can say like our score was 95 or one of 500 schools, but to try and give more granular perspective, that's how close we are to those top schools. Um, there's always opportunities to be doing better. And I think that's the other thing that's exciting. Um, when I look at the state of Oklahoma, I think that like from my background, like prior to getting into university operations, I was doing like environmental credits trading, so renewable energy credits or carbon offsets. Um, so like from that perspective, a lot of those markets are regulatory for renewable energy credits, and there's a few regulatory markets for carbon offsets, but a lot of those are feeding into the voluntary market. So and Oklahoma has a voluntary renewable portfolio standard, which the state well exceeded. I think it was like 15%. And I think what I'm well removed from like keeping up with the statistics, but I think like 40% of the energy in Oklahoma comes from renewable energy. So we could be doing more from a regulatory standpoint there. if we wanted to be just advocating for renewable energy. I love that the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality is using components of the landfill tax to create grant opportunities that communities and municipalities and institutions of higher education can be using for grants there. I love the K through 12 program that is pulling money from the environmental license plates. So like the renewal tag, which I have just because one, it looks super cool, but it's also providing funding into this larger pool of money through K through 12 teachers to write grants so they can do environmental science projects in the classroom. So those are the things I really appreciate this going on from a state perspective, while also saying everyone at every level can be doing more.
Awesome. Well, I when you were talking about the campus impact and like where we rank among these like top 500 schools, what is the thing that can push us into the 1 through 50? Like what is that 1% change that can get us there?
I know. I wish I knew. I wish there was more kind of transparency on that back end with what the scoring rubric was. Um, 'Cause I don't really know maybe where they're assigning those points. So I can't clearly answer that question just from like a numerical standpoint. Um,
I think Oklahoma State ranked pretty high in their 1 through 50 from what I saw at least. So comparing state to our school, how would you improve Oklahoma based on what Oklahoma State is already doing, if you know?
I was like, I didn't look at their report. I love my counterparts at Oklahoma State. That's something that I do really appreciate with kind of the sustainability positions. There's no one filled like within the UCO spot right now, but I've had a great working relationship with the Oklahoma State sustainability coordinators. Katie Betts is great, and I really appreciate Elda, who was in that position before. But I don't know necessarily what their report says versus ours.